So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this third day of this summer course on strengthening European identity through culture and education and how to manage it. Today, we'll focus on international cultural cooperation and its cultural dimensions. And we have with us, we will have a very intensive day, but also very interesting, with three main speakers. Now we have Professor Mario Neve. He's professor at the Department of Cultural Heritage in the Ravenna campus in Bologna. Mario Neve is full professor of geography and currently teaches cultural geography, geography of history, towns and landscapes, and geography of the Euro-Mediterranean region at the Department of Cultural Heritage of the University of Bologna, where he's also lab lead of the Labirinto, Interdisciplinary City Landscape Lab. He's program director of the International MA International Cooperation on Human Rights and Intercultural Heritage of the Department of Cultural Heritage. And he's going to participate twice today, one now to open the session, and then after lunch. And we'll give him 1 hour for the first presentation, and we'll have 1 hour debate, where, of course, I invite you not only to react on his speech, but also try to connect with the other speech that were taking place during the last 2 days. So, Professor, thank you very much for being here with us, and the floor is all yours. Thank you.
This is yours. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It is I really appreciate to stay here, also because it's the first time in this beautiful region. So, you know, as a scholar of landscapes, it's a very amazing landscape from many aspects. So let's go to the first. Can go to the yes. So you know that basically my speech will be on some theoretical aspects of geography, but related to the main topic of cultural heritage, of course. And cultural heritage not just generally speaking, but related specifically to what does it mean today, the heritage, to us in this moment, in the historical moment in which Europe is in a turmoil for many aspects, and in which the same, the concept itself of heritage is on strain, is hard to be accepted, because we have more and more requests and claims for local identities, local heritage, and so on. But let's start from the first question, the first issue. This how can we think the heritage? So we must think the heritage critically. You know that this is a word coming from the Greek. It's a very old word. The Greek word is the same of the word crisis. The krinein means to distinguish, to separate, to sort out. No? So critically doesn't mean to criticize at any rate, at any cost, everything. No. It means to make a good use of reason. Okay? This is the basis of what we gained by scientific progress, by any kind of good progress we enjoyed in history. So distinguish, sorting out, separate things to exercise the thinking. Okay? Now, thinking critically for heritage is it's an hard exercise because, you know, today we have many changes undergoing. The sense of places, for example, the sense of belonging. What does it mean to belong to a place or anything, or to a family, or to a community? That all these things, all these concepts are in a way under strain. So, first thing, start from here. I'm sorry for using, I'll be using many times art to link all these thoughts, because art is very useful, and I really advise you to use it properly, of course, but art is a great way to think theoretically and to have insights about these issues. So this is Italo Calvino, this very beautiful book of Italo Calvino of the early 70s, The Invisible Cities. I love this book very much, so I know that probably to the youngs is unknown, but it's a very good book. He is thinking about Marco Polo, talking to the Kublai Khan of all the cities he visited. And Kublai Khan is thinking sometimes that he is inventing the cities, but anytime. He likes it. No? He likes him. He likes his telling, the way of telling. The way, you know, storytelling is one of the most, probably the oldest form of art we know. It is a great gift for any human being to be a good storyteller. That, of course, no, I'm not about this, but we have Stevie, which is who is very a good storyteller, and Calvino says about this city called Octavia. It's a spider web city, so a suspended city over the abyss. Okay, so in a very difficult situation, but he says the life in this city is less uncertain than in others. Why? Why? They are suspended over an abyss. They have just this net linking, no, the two sides of the abyss. It is also the bridge to cross, no? Because, he says, it's less uncertain because the inhabitants know that the net will last only so long. The limit of their life, of their good life, is the same fundament on which the city itself grounds. What does it mean, this? How can we interpret this metaphor? Think that in 1972, we are far from having the web. But it's talking about just a spider web city, okay? And we are suspended on the web today. They are even talking about smart cities. It could be better and happier cities because they rely on the web, okay? The Internet of Things and all this stuff, you know? But the problem is, which is the limit? Being aware of the limits of a form of life, of a form of civilization, is very important to safeguard the civilization itself. Being aware of the complexity of the world today, which is very, very complex, more complex than probably in any phase of history, is so important today, above all for the youngs. Also because, as it was demonstrated by Alain Touraine in 2005, we are living in a society that we are still thinking in an old way. So we still use categories about society that are not working anymore. We talk about, for example, the idea that societal bonds, no, are the real basic relationship. No? There's no more. Because, as Touraine remarks, more and more people is defining himself in terms of cultural terms, no more in social terms. The society was a space produced by the nation state. So it was also the basis of equality, of the aspirations to democracy, of course, because the idea that the nation space, so all the citizens belonging to a state, were on the same basic level. No? They're starting from the same basic level. There's no more true. Because many people, and more people, are defining themselves in cultural terms, so very specific, local, particular. We have more and more facing the growth of local concerns compared to, for example, the universal rights like political or human rights. So the society is changing very, very fast, and we have to understand how to grasp it, how to find new categories, new tools, because otherwise we are, we are using old tools that are no more working. So, a bit of art. Huh? So, I'll use different examples from art just to show you how things are changing, but how, in some ways, they are still valid in an old way. For example, societal bonds, okay? Societal bonds are thinking, we talk about societal bonds always starting from households, families, education institutions, and so on. But what happens when two artists, Agnès Varda, who is a very renowned movie maker from France, and the street artist Jean René, they try to show a different way people is related to places. Huh? And they make this documentary, basically it's a documentary film, but the title is Visage Village, this faces places. Now, it is not just a pun, but is the question how people today are really belonging to the place the way they live or they work. Okay? There's a sound? There's a sound? No? Sorry. Oh, okay. Fortunately, we have still subtitles, so it's fine. Okay. Please pay attention to the village. The village in decay. They shot before. They have this van, the mobile van, which is just a photo booth, a mobile photo booth, and they print on the spot these wallpapers, enormous wallpapers, and they install them on the places where people is living or working. But it's the people is in relation with the movie makers and choose to be portrayed or not, and which kind of, for example, position or, you know, which is the setting. Is an interaction. It's not just saying, okay, you stay here and I take a picture of you or I shot you. No. It's an interaction. It is a very funny film. I advise you to watch it. It's very interesting. You see? Workplaces also. So what's happened? Here you have basically a trip across France in different places, but all inhabited places. There's just one place at the end of the movie which is not inhabited. It is the little village you saw before. It is Peru, in Normandy, on the Channel. That was just a speculation. 70 houses unfinished, and in the course, yes, the municipality, the city council already decided to destroy all the house. It was a speculation. It was a clumsy speculation too, because there was no network, no roads, no water, nothing. And the nice thing is that the two artists, along with the villagers, that try to bring to life for once, the village, just once. So, what is the lesson? You have to think that here, the city council already decided to reuse the land for another speculation. And this is not a very good place to build, because it's along the coast. It is a coast with many studies demonstrated that is prone to submersion, so, But this is a way also for people to show a very important thing, this is a very the part of a project we are running in the laboratory I run with other universities. Is about what we can call very simply the mind of cities. Okay? What is a place's mind? What is a mind? The mind is not what happens in our heads, but it's the interactions between our brains, our bodies, and the things. Okay? So this is the idea. And here is working, because these people worked with the movie makers for a week or more, interacting. Of course, in the movie you cannot see all the interactions. It was impossible. But it's a good distillation of them. And you can see that all this is really important, is the face-to-face interaction on place. This is still valid. Human beings are, notwithstanding virtual realities, augmented realities, and so on, we are still interacting really face-to-face, because it's the basis of trust. Without trust, you have no kind of social relationship at all. Rest assured, it's impossible. And the physical presence is strange, but we are very primitive in this sense, but at the same time we are very advanced. Think, the physical presence is still the main factor of trust. Even for companies. They can run, okay, a lot of meetings, or transatlantic meetings by Skype, but once in a week, once in a month, you need to be there and seeing each other. I want to feel the commitment. This is important. Now, another example, because we have to rely this discourse to what the heritage, which is the role played by heritage in this. Because it's so different, we can have societal bonds even in very modern places. Why is it so important to stay in a historical building? Because it's beautiful? Because it's, I don't know, more comfortable? No, often not, No? Normally, renovated buildings are a nightmare for any architect or engineer, because they are full of, difficulties. It's very hard to find a good construction company able to make a very good renovation work. So, why? Why are we so attached? Because we are European, so we are obsessed by the past, Charles V. Because of this? It's just this? Really? No, of course not. If we think about what I have probably pushed a lot, saying that it's a mind's places. Mind of places. It's the mind. What mind? It's the interaction. But the interaction with the heritage is not the same thing that the interaction with, modern furniture, plastic, steel. That could be very beautiful, True, of course. We have a lot of great modern architecture, but it's different. It's different because any material belongs to a society which is in turn historically defined. It's not by chance. It's not by chance, I assure you. So, what is traditional knowledge? Traditional knowledge was the kind of knowledge being despised by modernization. No? Normally was considered unscientific, not proved to be effective. No? For example, this, the oasis of the Sahara, the reservoir systems, the watersheds in Yemen, the Iranian Khanate, the irrigation systems in China, or the Ligurian terraces. So, all belonging to the kind of very old landscapes you can find in the first European landscape we know, painted by Ambrogio Lorenzetti, and half 15th century in Siena, in the town hall. Why the town hall? Because the citizens had to recognize the landscape to be part of it. Interaction. It's the first landscape in the history of art in Europe, we know, in which you can recognize, bless you, in which you can recognize the places. Giotto, you see Giotto, the frescoes. Yes, there is a landscape, but it's not recognizable. You can't see that is Umbria. You see the miracles of St. Francis, okay, but you see just, but you see just some trees, no? Not really recognizable. In Lorenzetti, you can. You can recognize even the kind of, sorry, I have to go on, yeah. Move forward, okay. You can recognize even the kind of cultivation techniques, the crops. You see a real landscape. Why should be so real? Because the citizens had to be, in interaction with it. To be a citizen in Siena wasn't, you have to be, owner of a house, but also a good citizen in the sense that you have to participate in the general, in the common good. The common good was also the contado, okay? The countryside, because the countryside was the main, the real richness of the city. So, this is the role of traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is important because it is effective. We still use the terraces today, because in Mediterranean you have no enough land to cultivate if you have no terraces. And they are effective. They are effective against, for example, the drought. So, are good as a techniques, but at the same time are very old and are, can say, are at the same time a societal bond, really. The people working together in this kind of activities are really tied, are really linked. Not by some sort of magic, but just because they are reinventing the tradition. This is very important. I want to underline a lot this concept. Tradition is not something like an object you have just to pass on and alter it. This is the idea which brings to ethnic cleansing. The idea that it is something pure, something of the origin, unaltered, unchanged, that everything changes. It's impossible that things don't change. It's impossible. The problem is not that things change. The problem is to be able to reinvent the tradition any time it is necessary. This is very important. Of course, any society or community has to choose what to do with tradition. It's a choice. It's a political issue. In the highest sense of the term, it's a political issue. You have to choose. You cannot do this by chance or, You have to choose it because you have to reinvent. How? In many ways, you have to choose. And probably Lukács was right when saying that the most important thing of humans to be afraid is freedom. the freedom to choose. Human beings are afraid of this. They prefer to stay in a very defined, narrow, straight path to not choose, not be obliged to choose. But this means that, you know, that Europe today has no hope. This is the case. I hope not, really. So, I want to ask Miguel, if I can, how much time is left? I cannot see it because I'm sorry, but I'm a bit blind. Half an hour, okay. Another question, not just what is the cultural heritage, but, okay, I try to talk about what is the mind of places, or the mind of cities. What is cultural heritage? Now, what is a place? Okay? What is a place? I don't know if you know this movie. It's Unknown. It's on the long stretch of movies like Matrix. Make use of a lot of augmented reality to show a future city. So, you remember that I said we are also very primitive because we still need face-to-face interaction, no? So, watch this. Do you know probably Marina Abramovic? Good. This is a performance at the MoMA in 2012. Lasted for 3 months and a half. What kind of performance? The idea is the artist is present. And she ran this kind of performance every day for 3 months with this setting. Please note the setting, because it's very, very, very important to us. It is very relevant to our topic. Unfortunately, we have no sound here, but I'll try to fill the void. And clumsy, I'm afraid. But she's really very effective. This is the setting. A table, 2 chairs. Just a table, 2 chairs. But also, please note, there is a border. She wants an edge around the place, which is, you note that all the tapes on the floor with some sort of fence with spots. This is the idea. People are in line to participate, to join the performance. For each of them, children, grown-ups, everyone, she devoted the same time, not talking absolutely, not moving absolutely, not touching absolutely. This is the idea. But just looking in the eyes. So, this could be a bit strange, probably, to you, but think, if you stay also just a minute in front of a stranger, basically, who is looking into your eyes, not talking, not moving, in a sense, it's disquieting, you know? And so many people were moved by this. So this is probably in my modest really opinion, the best definition of what a place is by contemporary art. This is a place. To have a place, you don't need particular things. You need things. You need the table. Because why? Why do you need the table? Because you cannot have a real interaction without respect. The distance is not something you have to overlook. If you are talking with a stranger is approaching you too close, you are on his, no? Depending, of course, of the culture, so yeah, no. With Chinese, we are, we are very at ease in staying close, not a great problem. But anyway, normally we use the distance just to measure the way we interact. She and Marina Abramovic, after 1 month, left just the chairs, no table. You know why? Because the audience learned to stay at this place, not approaching. It was just 1 month of education of the public, and then all rolled smoothly. And this is very important. This is a place. They are not talking. They are even not talking. What do I talk with a stranger for 1 minute? Nothing, no? But the simple human interaction through the eyes and the physical presence anytime, and is, of course, for her was exhausting, but people was meaningful. But some people reacted badly. Some were moved, where some others were, you know, indifferent. Some began to laugh. So, all different reactions. This is a place, okay? This is really a place. In this, Marina Abramovic gave really a great demonstration of the very huge force of human interaction. Just two people, a stranger to each other, but at the same time able to do something meaningful in 1 minute. That is well more what you can obtain on social networks today. Huh? Well more. I'm sure of it. So, I don't know if how much time is left? 23? Oh, okay. A lot. Okay, go on. No. It's just to avoid to give too much stuff all in a time. Okay. The second question is not just thinking critically, but being aware of the complexity. And this is very hard to obtain. Because, you know, complexity is... we have a lot of definitions of what complexity is, even by scientists. But when you think about complexity, normally you think it's complicated. But it's not. It's not a synonym of complicated. It could be simplistic. Complex could be also something very easy or simple. For example, the example of Marina Abramovic was really complex. But basically it was simple. 2 people, 2 chairs, 1 table. Not so many things, basically, no? But I have some examples to not bore you too much with all these speculations, but about complexity. Okay? There is a joke, it's not really a joke, that the geographers are the only ones knowing that the earth is round. Really, we mean it. Do you know why? They say, oh, we know, it's sure we know that the earth is round. No, you're not. Because you are using every day technologies flattening the world. Flattening the world. In fact, Thomas Friedman wrote a book just a few years ago called The Flat World. Because the world of globalization, driven by technologies, is a flat world. It's so fast because it's flat. Please, look. First example, language. You know that languages are not just tools, are worlds. No? And you say Dutch language is not just a language, it's a world, it's a cultural world. Because you use the words according to some contexts, which are socially determined, historically determined. Fine? So there is a distinction between low context and high context languages. You know this? This is the distinction between different kind of languages according to this scale of high context, low context. High context means that you, to communicate, to convey your ideas, you are relying more on the not done said, okay? To the famous reading between the lines. This is high context, so more context than words. Low context means you have to be very, for example, reading a syllabus of an American university and you have a very low context language. They say everything. Even when you have to, reading this or not, it's a list of instructions, very detailed. This is very high context. Dutch are considered in Europe one of the lowest context meaning, because in business, this is a book about business, by the way, it's a culture map. It's about business. They say that normally Dutch businessmen rely on really a transparent language to trust the others. Is it true? Yeah. Don't know. I'm not Dutch businessman, so I'm not able to stay this test. Anyway, Erin Meyer, we worked a lot of time for many European, American, Asiatic companies, sorry. She makes this distinction and even classifying cultures according to the use they do of the context of language. So she says this is a real border, not just the boundaries, the national boundaries. Because remember the old idea, the Odyssey. Remember when Ulysses is asked to make the sacrifice to reconcile him with Poseidon. I say, where is the border of the kingdom of Poseidon? Like, okay, you just take an oar of the boat, putting it on the shoulder, and going inland. As soon as you meet a wanderer, a stranger, saying that what they're doing with your winnowing fan on the shoulder, you say, okay, it's fine, it's there. It's a cultural limit, because an oar can be exchanged for a winnowing fan, which is a rural tool, not a sea tool. So this is the border between the sea and the land. It's a cultural border. All borders are cultural, basically. All. This is the idea. So this means, why is it so complex, the world today? Because we have growing claims, no? About cultural rights, cultural definitions, ethnic definitions. So this means that we have some sort of puzzle growing. If we just follow all these distinctions, we lose our bearings. Okay? So I used a lot of this example, but it's different now. This is an old puzzle, a psychological puzzle. Was used by Paul Watzlawick, who worked with Gregory Bateson, saying that, okay, how can you link all these 9 dots with lines, no? Not taking the pencil off the paper. So normally, the answer is 4 lines, okay? This is an example to make people learn to think outside the box. It's not staying focused on the 9 dots as a border. But this is not the case. I want you to think this. We are, on how many dimensions are displaying? It's a sheet of paper, so? 2, really, no? The flat world, 2 dimensions. 4 lines, okay? But if you translate this on the Earth, you need just 1 line, a single line. Look, this is complex. You are going from 2 dimensions to 3, but you have an economy of scale from 4 lines to just 1. And this is a law working for any kind of human business. I have no time to show all the examples related to this, but it's important. For example, the growing of companies or businesses or cities is linked to this kind of idea. So I think it's very complex. Huh? It's basically a simple example. At the same time, if you think over, really, it's very, very complex. In fact, we have 2 kinds of models. The plane, which is the 2-dimension, is basically meant to use the so-called linear functions. So it means when you have the growth of one element, you have the growth of the other element. So you can trace just a line to represent it. Okay, on the Earth, it's quite never the case. Okay? Because you have the so-called non-linear relations. But I show you in a simple way. Technology is actually flat. The digital, how it works, you remember? 1, 0, just numbers, 2 dimensions. All this image, even what I am projecting to you, pictures, movies, are all made by 2 numbers. 2, all combinations of 2 numbers. Just this. Everything, the hardware, the software, is all built around 2 numbers. So when we talk about digital, it's something very complex in a sense, based on, grounded on a very simple idea. To translate all the world we know, images, sounds, no? Everything through numbers. 2 numbers, basically. This is a very flat world. It is effective. It works. It works a lot. Not for everything, but it works. The same logic was applied to cities. 2 dimensions, always the plane. The grid of the American cities is this idea. And the strange thing, it is coming from the French Revolution. The idea of equality was the base of Thomas Jefferson Land Ordinance Survey, which brought to this kind of disposition of the grid to be the best way to manage cadastral maps and land development. So this is the reason why if you get a look, you give a look to a map of the United States in the Midwest, you find all these very geometrical boundaries. These are based on this. Chicago was basically grid, because it was based on land development. So real estate. The real estate is the real engine of the modern city. But this logic was applied to nature too. I just want to finish this part on this idea because I think it's effective to understand the complexity. Even the nature was translated by this. James Scott talked about what he calls the legibility of the world. He says that the state has to make legible things. What does it mean? To manage, for example, lands, forestry, no? They need standards. Do you know that today for example, for all the food products in European Union, we have standards. Not just hygienical standards, but also which kind of crop, this is called the directives, no? About how to be, when is harvested and how they sort, etc., etc. We have standards, because standard is the basis also of business. Otherwise you are not able to have a global trade. No standards. You know which is the biggest invention in standards? The container. It was used for the first time for the Vietnam War. But today is the shipping standard. Why is it so important? Think, what is a container? Yeah, but it's a box you can just displace. It's not important what it is inside. It could be anything. At the outside is a standard. No? Same measures, same weight. So this is a way to translate into flat world. Something if it's very various, different. No? Can be weapons inside. Could be, I don't know, human beings too. Drugs. Yeah, of course, anything. You can buy furniture. There are people moving from one continent to another using containers. But outside, you see just these building blocks, no? Going from trucks to ships to cargoes and so. This is a way to translate into well. So, last thing before I come to a close. No, it's fine. Okay, just the last example. Do you know how many ways we have to talk about nature? In national languages, we have very different contexts of meaning talking about the same thing, more or less. This is French, this is Welsh, about the colors. This is a distinction about the colors, and, you know, we have no correspondence between the two. At the same time, about nature, you have here the same categories, more or less, in Italian, in Spanish, in French, in Norwegian, in German, and of course in English. See how are different, very different. German are 3 words. We use 5 for talking about the same thing. We distinguish a bosco, which is a little forest, from the real forest. They have just, for example, in French, you have just the bois, forêt. The bois is the material is the wood, but the wood, at the same time, is something different, because it's also a little forest, but also the material. So, okay, but they distinguish with timber, and timber is not used in Italian, in French, in Spanish. So all these ways, the languages respected the complexity of nature, all the differences. Today are very different. At the left, you find what? A wild forest. At the right, you find a tamed or domesticated forest. You know the differences? On the right, you have all the same distances, no, among the trees, and there's the basis of the scrub is removed because you need the light and the air had to, circulating. The wild forest is a wild forest. So, but this is important because this kind of domesticated nature was the basis since the 18th century of the so-called fiscal forestry in all Europe. So a way of, in a way, of taming the complexity. But now I have to stop absolutely because I told too much, gave probably too many examples. So I'm very thankful for your patience.
Okay, here. Okay, here.
Yeah.
Okay. Sí. Professor Mario, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I think it was a good way to start the morning. I should say I was just talking with Bart when you were showing the wild forest, and I was thinking, well, that is not a wild forest. I was in the rainforest a couple of weeks ago in Panama, and that was really a wild forest. And I should tell you, because you were mentioning the different ways of naming the colors. And I was quite impressed because when I was there in the rainforest, well, for me everything was green. But they have like 25 names for the green. So indigenous from there, people from there, know how to identify the 25 different colors of green they can find in the rainforest and what it represents. And it can be even a question of surviving, because sometimes when there is a kind of green, it's because there is more danger or whatever. So it was quite interesting. Okay, now we are going to have like 1 hour for debate. Well, let's say 45 minutes, because we started a little bit later, so we can recover some time for the later presentations. And I will start with a reflection, which can become a question, and also a question which is a tricky one, maybe a philosophical one. A long time ago, in one of the courses we had here in Yuste, we make a distinction between a place and a seat. A seat, like it can be a seat. So maybe for many of you, Yuste was a seat, is a seat, is in Extremadura. That doesn't mean nothing to you, especially. Well, maybe you know there is a monastery, Charles V was here. But once you are here and you had a good experience and you live that experience that in some way, and we try hard for that, you will remember forever, it becomes a place for you. So there is also this difference in the concept on the way you look at any place. I mean, it's not a place until you get a personal identification with it. I don't know if you ever thought about this, or what do you think that something which should be the conditions for something to become a place, to become part of your life, your memory? That is my first reflection or question. And the other thing is that you talk a lot about standardization, and we talk about diversity. How standard can diversity be? That is the philosophical question. In Europe especially, because our motto is unity in diversity, but we need standards to work. So here is the tricky question. When we are trying to build up a concept, also a way of living, where we have to respect diversity, but at the same time living together. Is it possible really to combine both things? We were talking a couple of days ago, also about the thing of how states are afraid of giving cultural policy to the European Union because they are afraid that diversity will be lost and we will not respect the diversity and the cultural diversity of each country. So here is the complex things that came to my mind when you talk about the necessity of standardization. Sorry for that. And now you have to think also about other questions, and we will have to open a debate. And if you don't ask, I will ask you directly, one by one. So maybe you want to answer first my comments, and then I already see some hands rising. Yeah. 1, 2, okay, 3, 4, oh, great, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's going to be a very interesting hour today. Can you please, Linda, help me with the micro, which is over there? But you can start answering. You can go on answering the questions.
Okay. The first one. Okay. In our research, we found that normally all people, we all, you have to cope with two kinds, basically, of pasts. One is her story, so the biographical past, okay? Our social context, our family, the communities we met or we joined, and the official past. No? So a seat is belonging to an official past. Mm-hmm. But if this is a place or not depends on how I cope with the two pasts. For example, I can reject the official past. Mm-hmm. Many people did it during the Second World War, for example. No? Refusing to belong to the fascist Italy at the time. Mm-hmm. No? This was the official past. They said no. No? Mm-hmm. Or, for example, think about the academicians, the Jewish academicians were expelled. They felt Italian, but at the same time, they split. Mm-hmm. They had to split. So the way to cope this different past, because it's a very complex one, mm-hmm. is what the answer to your question. So this can be a seat, either a seat or a place, but it depends how mm-hmm.
interact
with it. For example, you are doing a good job in translating a seat in a place. Because you are here, you are in a living interaction, so it's really a place. I find it enjoyable, so I found it a place, surely. But the very difficult thing is to translating this from the personal scale to the community scale. How can share these things? So, and this is the second question, because when we share things, knowledge or anything with other persons, we have two parts, the qualitative side and the quantitative side. So the quantitative side is very easy to be shared. In fact, any technology relies on this. No? The flatware, remember? The standard of the containers. It's only way that numbers are numbers, here, in Thailand, or anywhere. But the qualitative things, it's a real nightmare. Like the low context, high context meaning in languages. This is different. So the challenge is how to work to share the qualitative side of places. You know, of course, avoiding, you know, the turbo-tourism, they called. You know that for the first time in the European history, we have a lot of cities refusing tourists. Valencia, Barcelona, a lot, Marseille. So, because there are too many. And I have this example of the afternoon, sorry, but I want to say this in advance. It's very important. Mediterranean cities today are a real living laboratory of this. That exists, strangely enough, we consider, or is considered mainstream, the fact that the Mediterranean was backwards, no, as to globalization, but actually is anticipating some developments. So it should be, I think, it should be watched closely, although it's happening. But I think we can share this. It's a very, very hard task, but it's worth it.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if
yeah, well, you give some ideas on how to think on
always
that.
Too many, huh?
On that, yeah, and it's a complex,
too much.
It's a very complex thing, in fact. And as you say, nowadays in Europe, there is this problem of how to manage tourism in cultural cities. And yesterday there was a big article in the national newspaper El País, where people who has the label of worldwide heritage is complaining because they cannot manage their cities anymore. So it's becoming really a problem we have to think about very seriously. Okay, here, there, dale here first. To Isabella, and then there, we go this way, and then there. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, what could you explain what you mean by the mind of a place? What does that mean? Is it some kind of collective consciousness, or is it something more nuanced than that? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I collect the others, or
as you prefer. What do you prefer? Maybe you can answer one by one.
Yes. Okay, this is an hypothesis we are working on. The idea starts from the basic hypothesis that the city, as an original human environment, is the oldest known form of artificial intelligence. But not in the sense of computing machines, but in the sense of the interactions between people and things. Okay? We have an old distinction in all the Indo-European languages between the city of stones and the city of people. So, the community and the built environment. So, the mind of places is something virtual. So, any city is smart. This is the idea. We have no smart cities, and cities are not smart. So, all cities are smart. Depending on the fact they use the intelligence of places, which means using the living interactions, latent living interactions in all the places to bring them to life, to making it actual. Is something tied to not just to technological solutions. It's based on the fact that people, in a sense, is able to interact face-to-face again to solve, to face and solve, or try to solve, any kind of problem of the place. So it's tied to democracy, basically, of course. Of course. But the problem is to find new ways to use it, because the traditional ways we know are not working really, because we have this kind of dissolution of societal bonds, the traditional societal bonds, the nation. So it's useless to close, the doors. It's important. I'll show you in the afternoon. I have an example, a couple of examples about what is this mind of places. It is, in a sense, something it is latent. We are, for example, we are just an audience now, okay? No? So we are strangers to each other. But you are listening to me, I hope. And I'm trying not to be too boring in communicating. But at the same time, when we reach for a moment, it's just a little moment, just in an hour of discussion, just a little moment, you say, oh yeah. No? It's like when you go to a place and say, wow. So it's fantastic. So this problem is you have at the same time the reason and the feelings. I remember very well the text of Martha Nussbaum, said the intelligence of the reason, of the feelings. So the feelings are part of the intelligence. We are not the feelings and the reason. No. Reason is made also of feelings. So, sorry, but I'm not.
Okay. Next one, I thought I was philosophing, but we are going deep into this. Please present yourself and you say where are you coming from, and you should.
Well, I'm Angel. I'm coming from Complutense University of Madrid, and I was very interested about the idea of containers because I have read that idea connected to nation state and how these nation states or modern state, which was built around the 15th century, is not eating anymore in our complex societies. And I wanted to know what you think about that idea.
Oh, basically, yes. The nation state was built on two basic concepts. Okay, it was the answer to a long. We always forget it, but the nation state was the only answer found. I don't know if it was the best, but it was the only answer found to a long history of violence, war. The first, the so-called the birthday is the Westphalia Treaties. Is also the birth of the modern Holland nation. Because it was a new way to think about communities, saying that you have, in a sense, a kind of bond inside any nation. Of course, a bond to be built. The national education is a consequence, of course. You are not born a citizen, but you have to become by learning history of the country, the geography of the country, so this. No, the maps hung in the classrooms once. At the time, it was important because it was the image, no? See, so this was the idea. The equality among the citizens was built around this idea. It was effective because actually, no. We finally, after the two world wars, it was really nationalistic wars, we enjoyed for the first time in all Europe's history a long period of peace. We forget it, but it's important. So the state was very, very important in this. At the same time, the economics, the economy, you know, the basis of a capitalism is to break boundaries. I have no time to say, but it's called special fix. You have to reinvest the surplus in other places. And this is the reason why you have a global economy. It's impossible to be controlled or managed by the scale, at the scale of a state. Because states are, unfortunately, too little for the global trade, are too big for the local needs. And it's not strange that today in Europe we have just 2 countries with still able to run welfare. It are the federal states, Spain and Germany. So this is the problem, you know. All the standards of the global trade were effective because they allowed all goods or services to be distributed anywhere. Think about hotels. You find the same facilities everywhere. Everywhere. From Alaska to Japan to Pacific Ocean, no? There's standards. And you have the chart of the traveler with all the standards. They are important, of course, because are a guarantee. At the same time, they are not enough because they just measure. May I say, in this is important also what he was saying about the academics, the Bologna process. Sorry for this. I know it's a cross we have to bear, but it was important because the idea was, okay, you are from Spain, you are from France, but you can study everywhere. It's fantastic. Really, eh? The Erasmus program was really one of the best ways to unite Europe. But the problem were the credits, because the standards was built on the quantitative side. You know, I'm the delegate at international relations. It's a nightmare. When we had to try to translate what the university in Spain, the grading system with the British, with the British, still, okay, now is, okay. But with all the other, it's terrible. Because you have to be, of course, fair and find a good balance, but it's impossible. Because the problem is grading, so saying you are a very good student can be really defined quantitatively? Really? I think any professor or any student knows this. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, let's go for the next one. Over there, you have the micro.
Good morning, thank you very much.
You say who you are, where you come from.
Good morning, thank you very much for your conference. My name is Irene and I'm a 4th-year international relations student coming from Madrid. And I would like to ask a little bit about the biographical past and the official past. Because yesterday we had very interesting conferences about individual and collective memory and about identity and culture. And I would like to know what is the relationship between identity, culture and the biographical and the official past. And what is the main difference between the biographical past and the official past? How can you separate them and say which one is which one? Because I cannot make a difference right now. Thank you.
The question is, we normally think about us as individual, okay? We are not. Because the individuation as individuals, it works just with the others. This is important. We are not realizing yourself as an individual all alone. We are no Robinson Crusoe, okay? It's impossible. We become what we become with the others, through the others, against the others, but basically in groups, okay? Can be just 2 people, 3. No, it's not important how many. So, our problem is to cope how biographical paths, because we have a story, and of course, when we are getting older, this past is a burden in a sense. So you say that all people are less flexible in the relations because are more assertive. Because the experience becomes something like that. But it's important. It's a gift, it's not a curse. The problem is to accept that social relations are based on conflict. We are in a society which is denying the conflict. And this is the reason why we have more conflicts than ever. Harsh conflicts. Because the conflict is part of the life. Okay, why have to agree with me, everybody? No, it's possible. When you run in business, you find someone working well, or dislike him, say it's normal. Why not saying? Why not taking the responsibility of this? Accepting that life is based also on conflicts doesn't mean that you have to be violent or rude or blunt. No. It means to accept there is a dialectics. That probably, when you finish the interaction, you probably still, you didn't change your mind, and the other probably is that. But you had an interaction, a meaningful interaction. The problem is having meaningful interaction, which means not saying just I like or I don't like. This is not an interaction. And using the word friends on the social media is friends, really? Please. Neither acquaintances. To be a friend means to be committed, means to share something, even heart, okay? Because any good, real, true relationship is, yes, undergoes something very, to be meaningful. Otherwise, so this is the problem. Coping the 2 pasts. But it is an endless work. And they say, we're not arriving and say, I'm a grown-up, now I'm an individual. No, I'm still learning. All life.
Thank you. Just as additional information, I was in a conference last week in Granada, and I was the rector or one of the main professors of the University of the campus of Melilla in Granada. He was giving the opening lecture. It was a master class for the academic year of the University of Granada. He was focusing on diversity, and he saw one of the problems just linked to the topic you mentioned of conflict, to be aware that we are conflicting persons. Also of the imperfection of the human being, because we tend to think that everything is perfect and everything is going to be solved because we are perfect and we try to do our best and so on, but it's the opposite thing, to conflict and imperfection, to we are imperfect, so we have to be aware of that all the time to try to solve the problems. Okay, let's go this way. We're going to go this way.
Hello, I'm Pilar. I'm from Seville's University. And you said that human beings trust physical presence. In other conference, they said that normally people trust their local institutions more than the European or national institutions. So do you think that physical presence is one of the main problems that we are having now with the trust in Europe, and how can we create a physical space or present to make people be more trusting with Europe?
I think yes, basically. It's not strange that you normally trust more the local authorities, because normally think, no, in a little town, the mayor is known by sight, is probably one of more or less acquainted people you know. So this doesn't mean automatically that they have to be trusted just because you see it, see him. Absolutely not. Any kind of relationship have to be tested, okay, on the facts. But today we have a very a gap between what is now about politics. No, now we have communication politics above all. It's all about communication. No, all the battlefield is fake news, real news, the truth. This is fake. Is that, no? Oh, I can say it because I'm Italian, so probably we are today, unfortunately, a real laboratory of this. We have an entire government relying on this.
You are very diplomatic.
And yes, now the result, apart from, okay, you can say, okay, but you hate social media. No, I'm not, really. No, trust me. But the problem is, when you have, for example, many official communication are channeled through Facebook. What if I'm a citizen, I'm not on Facebook? Not able to know it? Is it right? Why pretending that everybody stays on social media, every citizen? Apart from this, using always Twitter, like President of the United States, is a very good communication politics, because you avoid to elaborate, which is the main thing about important political issues. At the same time, you make pressure, because it's always aggressive. We are in a strange situation in which governments are just running endless election campaigns all the time. They find 5 years governing, so 5 years election campaign before the real election campaign. This is mad. You understand? This is the reason why also there is a great split between central governments and local governments. Also in Italy, we just, for example, we had a lot of towns, ruled by the new parties at the government, but the mayors are behaving very differently from the directives of the central government, because they are in a real situation with the real people and real needs. So it's not easy. Think about Genoa. I don't know if you followed the situation about the bridge. It's a sad but effective example of this, of what's happened. I don't know if I answered, but this is, yes, the president, the physical president is very important, provided that is used in different and new ways. So the old councils or the old participation meeting are too often used just to gain and keep the consensus. No more effective, in my opinion. But
okay, next one. Don't lose control.
Yes, I think that you have just answered the question that the person to do.
close. Did you? No, I think you didn't. You switch it off. You have to.
Sorry. Yes.
Start again.
You said that society is changing really fast, and we are using tools that are old. And I wanted to ask you if we can link this to politics and what we were talking yesterday about populism, and if some populism movement, as for example the 5 Stars in Italy or here Podemos and Ciudadanos, have found different tools that traditional politics are not using, for example?
Populism is just, riding the wave, and of course, boasting, because it's we have think about a no-vax movement. Okay, it's made of very different people, with many also grim stories. People having some parent or child was damaged by some, but at the same time, we had TV talk, so debate about this with a virologist on the left, which is a specialist, and right, a mom. So, I'm not, of course, against. It's not a question of gender. It's a question of competence. How could you have a fair debate about a scientific problem in this situation? Of course, the woman was just attacking the virologist, because she was angry because she had a family history, very rude, very hard, sorry. But the virologist said, okay, but this is not a what does it mean? You can find any kind of story of this kind, but this doesn't mean that the thousands and millions of people saved by vaccines are not affected. So, today there is also what Tom Nichols they defined the death of expertise. There was a distrust towards the culture, toward professors, experts. And this is something populism is very, very well. Now, we have an interior ministry saying that ignorance is a good thing, because you are more honest, more direct, you are not cheating. Because culture is equated to, manipulation. People knowing too much, so can be manipulated. And this is very dangerous, really. This is really dangerous. At the same time, the changes in society are effective. When you have people defining himself more in cultural terms, means that not just the ethnic even claims. No, not just this. The fact that you find a little Heimat to rely on, the little homeland. It could be even your district, your neighbors. No? Why this? Because of what I said, what I told before. So you rely people, you can interact, apart from the fact that it is not, this is a necessary condition, but not sufficient. No? Because we know that in the United States, more crimes are committed between neighbors in the same district. So this is not a proof. But in a sense, they also reaction of to the influence of social media, because there's an overload, an information overload on this every day. So people are, in a sense, screening information through this kind of attitudes. We are just studying them now, but we have no new categories to work on them. This is a problem. But maybe, I hope you find them in the future, probably.
Okay, there's another one over there. Here, yeah. Yeah. You both switch on the micro. That's it.
No.
Let's try to be a little bit, if possible, shorter, because there is still 3 questions and we don't have too much time left. Go ahead.
My name is Lucia. I come from the Complutense University of Madrid, and I think the art is an important tool to transform the societies, but usually only specific genres of art reach specific social group, so there's no whole transformation of the society. And my question is, how do you think that we can reach the transformation of the whole society through the art, like to the private stage to become to public stage in terms of art, as we watched in the trailer?
I'm not sure about art is a good way to think over and to also to rethink old situations and find new ways of thinking outside the box, as I said before. No? But at the same time, for example, craftsmanship is a great way, for example, to work on this, because art is, is also part of a market. So Marina Abramovic is one of the leader of the global art market. So it's a different thing, okay? It's something. But when art is used by the public or employed through craftsmanship to be in some matter, to be used in a community, to share not just thinking, but also the doing, okay? Doing together. Doing together things is a great way to face problems of conflicts, communication, so to build societal bonds. So it could be very useful. Find something linking together the jobs, the work, and the way of socializing.
Next door.
I'm sorry, but I have to be very quick. So if you want, you can discuss later in detail.
Hello, good morning. My name is Clara from the University of Seville. My question is that today we are celebrating the European Day of Languages. We have, I think, 24 official languages in Europe and more than 200 no official. And even though we are speaking in English, United Kingdom is going out. Don't you think that it could be a great proposal to the European Commission to invest much more budget in learning different languages, not only maybe French or Italian or Spanish, but because of in relationship with the concept you said before of sense of
yes,
appartenance.
High context and low context, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but yes, but the English we are using is not the real English, you know. It's just it's just an instruction. Could I say the instruction language? Yes. So it's an abridged version of something like very. So you know why we use English. It's just a colonial issue. We know it. So no, it's useless to think that it's by chance. It's by history. At the same time, the English we use it, and not just the English language is changing, of course, like any other kind of language today, but the real English is not this. Not mine, sure. but to use a different language, no? It could be, yeah, of course, if you can, if I could talk in Italian, it'd be more meaningful. I could go, of course, deeper in what I say. I'm obliged to be to stay in the mold of the language. Okay, so it's not easy, you know, when you're talking. I think for you it's the same, but yes, find a different way of managing European language should be, yes, could be an idea, but I don't know how you can impose a different way now. I don't know, really. So how change this way, saying that just we can change the basic language, or we can alternatively using the, but you know, Italian is just spoken by Italians. Probably the Spanish could be very, yes, is spoken by very, probably is the more diffused, no, today in the world. Spanish, yeah.
Spanish, yeah, is the second language worldwide.
So, I don't know.
China first, and
I not real an opinion on this, really.
But I could maybe answer something, because I have been working on the topic, and I have been chairing the Europea platform on multilingualism on social in the field of social field related with languages. But I can tell you that at the European level right now, the European Union is working very much on this politics to teach languages, and it's not focused on English at all. Abraham de Swan, who was here the first day, he was one of the experts, wise men. There was a group of 12 people commanded by the European Commission to make some recommendation, and he was one of the wise men, they call them like that, on multilingualism. And he say, okay, the more multilingualism, the more English, because we will try always to find a language, a common language to communicate. But the policy of the European Union goes in another sense, goes in the sense that we have to learn at least 3 languages. And it's not English one of them, is normally they are the ones that you have to choose that you think are more useful to you. And the third one normally should be a language that is close to you. Like, for instance, here in Extremadura, we are working with Portuguese, and this is the region where there is more students of Portuguese. And because you normally should learn a language that is in some way is close to your needs, and then you have to learn another language that is useful to communicate worldwide nowadays. But English is moved by other forces. At the end, it's us who are taking English as our own language, which is, as you say, is not the English from England anymore. Probably if we had here, and it happened to me a lot in Brussels, if we had here an English speaker, we'll have many problems to understand him, and he will have many problems to understand us, because there is now a new English. Maybe our Dutch friends are the most close to this perfectionist English, but it happens to me in Brussels all the time. Every time we are in a meeting and we are communicating, there is Germans, French, Italian, Spanish, Greek. Suddenly there is an English guy coming in, and okay, forget about that. Okay, let's go there. You present yourself, and you should.
My name is John Macken-Lepier. I'm from the University of Salamanca. I'm Asian. But thank you for a great presentation, Professor Mario. You said we have to reinvent a culture of heritage of a country sometime. So I would like to know when we have to reinvent a cultural heritage, and how we can change the cultural heritage of a country when this heritage has a negative impact of this country. That's my question.
Okay. For the second part of the question, I had to to talk in the afternoon, just because I talk about, you know, that we talk about best practices, no? I talk about worst practices of cultural heritage. So it's some example of this. So sometimes could be a damage and not just an asset or a value. At the same time, I think that cultural heritage is today in a very, you know, middle ground, because it was used, exploited a lot about tourism, basically, okay? So an economic asset. But today, we are in a moment in which there are cities rejecting the tourism. Tourism is becoming a curse, in a sense. But this is also the chance to use effectively the cultural heritage for the communities. So to use it as what I was trying to call the mind of the places. So the fact that you use, for example, you stay in a place where you have a tradition is linked to a specific agricultural technique or a specific landscape. So this is, of course, something belonging to the past, but it's also effective because it is the ground on which this technique is built, is carried out. Through the study of this and the way you can improve these techniques, you can use the cultural heritage as a way to improve the social relations. And I had to talk to, it's too quick, okay. But I know it's a bit assertive, I apologize. But, you know, it's a complex idea, because you have to put together some things that think about, we think always about cities, okay? Think about landscapes. Landscapes are also made, are not natural, are made. In Europe are strictly linked to the history of cities. So are part of the communities. Not just from the aesthetical point of view, but from many aspects. And this aspect can be used to be a new social ground. You know.
Okay, we will have more time this afternoon, maybe to go a little bit deeper.
Elaborate, yes.
On this, but I think we had a good discussion this morning. I thank you very much for your presentation. Maybe it was a little bit shorter than you are used to in Italy, but it was complemented by this rich debate. So I thank you very much for your participation. Keep going like that. I like it. And we say see you later to Professor with a big clap. Thank you.
Thank you.